good to be here. I was supposed to be in Paducah for Rotary about 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I got taken back to the hospital and got to spend another week in the hospital and lose 12 pounds in a week, and I'm telling you, it's not the best way to lose weight. So I've had a miserable month, but I am recovering and getting better, and I'm glad to be here. Other than my health concerns, I think there's never, ever, ever been a better time to be alive. And I mean that, it's not hyperbole. They're really, if you look at all of the statistics, don't watch the news. Well, Channel 6 is okay. Don't, in general, get your information from the news because we tend to emphasize bad news. You think about it. If you watch your evening news, you read the newspaper, I'm not picking on Paducah, I'm just saying in general, if you watch the news, you tend to see there was crime and so-and-so stole something from a store or there was a murder, and there are terrible things happening in our country. But you know what? They're the exception to the rule. And really the vast majority of people are law-abiding, peaceful people. The vast majority of people are involved in commerce, voluntarily buying and selling services and goods. And when you look at it in terms of history, it's extraordinary. There's a website called humanprogress.org, and it talks about human progress and the Enlightenment and how much we've done, because we tend to emphasize, it's like you hear these candidates running for president saying, oh, the economic pie is this big, and if you get yours, I don't get mine. If you get yours first, you're taking it from me. It's just absolutely and utterly false. The world's economy has doubled 8 times in the last 200 years. If you look at world economic growth or world GDP, there's a chart that begins sort of in prehistoric times, or almost just sort of the beginning of written times, and it goes along the x-axis forever. You get to about 1820, you get sort of the era of the Enlightenment and the beginning of the Industrial Revolution, and it's a hockey stick, and it just goes through the roof. So since 1820, we've doubled 8 times our economy. The economy's grown 100-fold. If you look at poverty, the statistics are overwhelming, and nobody is telling the story. In 1820, 90% of the people lived in extreme poverty. It's less than $2 a day. This is from the World Bank. These are government statistics. More than 90% of people lived on $2 a day. You keep the dollars constant. When I'm born in the 1960s, it's gone from 90% living in poverty to about a third. Since the time I was born in the early 1960s to today, it's less than 10%. Every day, 133,000 people rise up out of poverty. Doesn't mean they're rich, but they rise out of extreme poverty to a better place. In our country, the biggest problem we have is not starvation or lack of food. The biggest problem we have is too much food, actually. People are eating too much food. Obesity is a much bigger problem than starvation in our country. Does it make it perfect? No, but it's incredible how wealth is rising. And people say, well, it's unequal. Rich people are getting richer. Yeah, but so are poor people. Everybody's getting richer. The poor people in our country are equivalent to the middle class in most countries. So yeah, things aren't perfect for everybody, but if we ignore the great wealth of our country, I think we're ignoring something that is right in front of us. That being said, never been a better time to be alive, no matter what color your skin is. Is it perfect? No, but there's less discrimination than there was 50 years ago. There's less sexism, there's less genderism, there's less of everyism. It's not perfect, but there's way less than there's ever been in the history of time. And so when people come to me, whether it's a young woman or a person who's a minority, and say, oh, woe is me, I say, no, this is the best time ever to be alive. Go to school, get your degree, go. This is the best opportunity anybody's ever had. And I think we need to think about that. Then we need to ask the second question. Okay, we're doing well. The country's doing well. We have low unemployment. How did we get here? Did we get here because we accepted socialism? Or did we get here because we accepted capitalism? And there's no question about it. Socialism just frankly doesn't work. And everybody who's through the years said socialism was great. There were American intellectuals during the 1930s said Stalin was great. There were some saying Hitler was great, until they were no longer saying it was great when they learned about all the people that were killed through famine or whatever. Close to 100 million people died from famine in the 20th century. Like 80% of them died from collectivization of the farms. It was Mao and Stalin taking over the farms. And people say, well, no, that's not the kind of socialism we're for. We're for a kinder, gentler socialism. But the real question is, and we asked this in a book I've got coming out called The Case Against Socialism in the fall, we asked the question, is violence inevitable or is it an aberration? See, the people who like socialism say, oh, well, Stalin, just an aberration, we just got unlucky that time, we got a bad person. What about Hitler? Oh, Hitler wasn't a socialist. Well, actually he was. It was the National Socialist Party, and most of his planks of his party were identical to the Bolshevik planks. He just wanted a racial or racist sort of nationalist socialism, and the Bolsheviks had a different form, but it was still socialism. Mao, was he an accident? Pol Pot, was he an accident? Many of the left in our country loved Chavez. They bragged about how poverty had been reduced by 80%. But now the problem in Venezuela, now that they've gotten full and complete control of the economy and they have price controls everywhere and all of industry and everything is controlled by the government, people lost 20 pounds on average down there last year without trying because of lack of food. And people say, well, in your country, the 1%, the rich have all the wealth and they're getting richer and richer and fatter and fatter. Well, yeah, but in your country, the people related to Maduro or his generals are getting richer and richer and fatter and fatter. Anybody who ever lived behind the Iron Curtain said, yeah, there's a 1% here too. It's just not based on merit, it's based on cronyism. Now, do we have some cronyism in our country? Yeah, we do sometimes. I think we should try to keep the government out of picking the winners and losers. But if you own Walmart or some store and you're able to sell a lot of stuff, no one's making anybody buy it. If you become a billionaire, God love you. You sold something that people wanted. So I think we need to embrace sort of the success of it, but part of that success is not only capitalism, or an integral part I think of capitalism is trade. And that's one thing I worry about now is that we're doing really well as an economy. We're letting you keep more of your money by having a tax reduction, but some of that's being counteracted by the trade war. And so really, the specialization of countries and products is sort of an offshoot of what Adam Smith talked about when he talked about the division of labor. The division of labor is I'm a doctor, and if I had to grow my own food, I probably wouldn't survive. So we get lucky that farmers are really good at it, doctors are good at it, librarians are good at what they do, mechanics, everybody's better at what they do, but it's the same with countries. Some countries specialize, and after a while we decide we're not going to make flip-flops because they can make flip-flops in Vietnam for 99 cents. And you say, well, we lose jobs. But in the end, we're always richer. Because of trade, the average person who shops at Walmart saves, and this is really, I'm not being paid to advertise for Walmart, but the average person who shops at Walmart saves like $2,000 a year because of international trade. So trade is good, and I think we have to be concerned about it, and my advice to the Trump administration is get it done with. Let's get it done with. You know, NAFTA is going to be replaced if Nancy Pelosi will let it come up by this USMC thing. And I frankly think it's probably not as good as NAFTA, but I'll vote for it because we want something in place and we want trade in North America and the farmers want it and know that trade is good. In our state, I tell people I haven't had anybody come up to me and lobby me for the trade war for raising tariffs. Car industry doesn't like it, car parts industry doesn't like it, farmers don't like it, bourbon distillers don't like it, small manufacturers of metal and aluminum don't like it. I really haven't had somebody coming up and saying, yes, let's continue the trade war. I understand the president's perspective. He says, well, they don't trade fairly and they cheat. All that's true. And maybe he can push them into an agreement by playing hardball, and I hope that's what we get, but I hope we get a deal. My concern is the longer we don't have a deal, the more likely we are to have a slowdown in the economy. Some Kentucky firms have come to me and says, yes, we saved like $100 million in taxes by lowering the corporate rate, but it's costing us $100 million in lost trade from the tariffs. So it's sort of equaling out. Farmers are mostly just complaining that it's not good for them. And the concern of farmers is, as China and other countries develop trade routes to Brazil, that when the trade war is over, guess what? You got to now convince them to switch their supplying partners and come back to us, and it may be a problem. So all in all, I'm optimistic about the future of our country, the future of the world economy. I worry a little bit about the trade war. I still worry a lot about the debt. We're going to borrow nearly $1 trillion. And if people ask me whose fault is it, Republicans or Democrats, I say yes. Both parties really at fault. They want different things they want to spend the money on, but they're both profligate spenders, and there's really a lot of blame to go around to both parties. And there needs to be a voice, and I try to be that voice, saying we can't keep spending that. So I introduce things like the penny plan, saying you could cut 1% of your budget and balance your budget in 5 years. And the interesting thing is I have groups come to me from Kentucky all the time. They say, we would like money for this, and it's a good cause. And most of the time it is a good cause. And I say, well, all right, you got $100 million last year from the federal government. What if we gave you $99 million next year? And I've yet to meet a groups that are entirely dependent on federal government money that says, well, if everybody did that, I'd do that. We could do that. We could do it as a country. There's so much waste and graft and money lost and stolen and fallen through the cracks up here. You could cut 1% and still do the same job. You could even do it in Social Security. You can't tell me that in disability, there's not 1% fraud Anybody ever met somebody who says their back hurts, or their head hurts, or they're anxious? There's lots of them. And then are there truly disabled people? Yeah, but the truly disabled are being stolen from by the malingerers, and those aren't. We need to be hardcore. If you can work, you ought to work. And, you know, if you can't do construction work, maybe you should be in a call center. I mean, really, people ought to work, and it's better for them. And it's sort of tied into some of our other problems, the opioid problem and everything else. When you don't work, you get into other problems. It's not quite that simple. There's hereditary addiction and other things too. But at the same time, I think we should address these things, but it never happens up here. Everybody just says, give them more money. And then they say, oh, we'll put in these controls to control for waste. And I say, no. If you give people more money, they'll never. If I give you $99 instead of $100, you'll look to cut waste because you have to do what you're supposed to do. If I give you $110 and you had $100 last year, you're not going to look for waste. And that's what happens. It's been going on for decades. William Proxmire was a conservative Democrat back in the 70s, and he used to give an award called the Golden Fleece Award. One of his first awards was to the National Science Foundation. They had spent $50,000 doing a study on what makes people happy. And last year, or 2 weeks ago, I gave him an award for doing a study on whether or not selfies make you happier. If you could smile while taking a picture of yourself, whether that makes you happier. Really, if you want to study that on your own nickel. The taxpayer, we can't build enough roads, we can't take care of our roads, and people are spending $500,000 or $1 million studying whether selfies make people happy. But it's the same organization that he was complaining about in 1972, and it still goes on. But when I say, well, let's give them less money, they say, oh, we could never give them less money. And who are you? You're not a scientist. You can't determine what's a good study. It's like, well, let's put a taxpayer on there, a person, maybe they say we have to have a college degree, that says whether or not the study is valid. And most of this isn't basic science. I mean, most of it's sort of this rotten sort of behavioral sciences. One of them was $300,000 to study whether Japanese quail are more sexually promiscuous on cocaine. We could have polled the audience on that one. And yet, when I say this stuff, the scientists all write back to me and say, oh, I'm just a dumb politician. I could never tell them how to do studies. Well, maybe we should have some common sense and not just have, the problem is, see what happens is the scientists all determine the grants. So if I'm a behavioral science, guess who determines it? 5 other behavioral scientists. But guess what? I'm going to be on the committee next year when they come back and ask for money. So there is no disincentive to giving money, and so it goes on and on. Everybody gets their money and everybody gets their study. So we have to do a better job, and that's part of the reason we're bankrupt. A big part of it's the entitlements too, though, and that's Social Security and Medicare just don't have enough money. Too many old people and not enough young people. We can fix that, but it takes a while. And we've been going the opposite direction. So we do have to do something about Social Security and Medicare. And the easy fix is a hard political fix. You have to gradually raise the age of eligibility. We're living longer, and you just have to do it. But try getting anybody. I have a bill to do that. I've had it for 8 years, and I have like 3 co-sponsors. Everybody's afraid to fix Social Security. We did in '83, though. We raised the age from 65 to 67, and it allowed Social Security to last these last couple decades. But we have to do it again. Either that or dramatically raise the Social Security tax. But if you do that on everybody, you're going to really punish a lot of working people, and it's because everybody pays the Social Security tax. It'll be a big punishment to working class people. None of this is insurmountable. Overall, I'm optimistic. I think Kentucky's doing well, and I'm glad you're here, and I'd like to hear from you guys if you have time for a few questions. Thank you.